a real man, cigarettes are undoubtedly a close friend. Yes, this thorny habit of masculinity silently powers a massive industry worth over $850 billion, enveloping the world in cigarette smoke. But few know that the journey of a cigarette begins in the rustic simplicity of vast green fields, where immense tobacco plantations are swept by giant harvesting machines, then subjected to weeks of rigorous drying and curing before being cut into thin strips and fed into high-speed automated production lines. So what goes on inside those factories that can produce tens of thousands of cigarettes in just 1 minute? Let's dive in. Today, over 1.3 billion people worldwide smoke cigarettes. In America alone, CDC data shows that roughly 28 million adults and 2.8 million teens still maintain this habit.
Despite the well-documented health risks, the demand for cigarettes continues to rise. Structurally, a modern cigarette is quite simple. A core of blended tobacco leaves wrapped in specialized paper and tipped with a cellulose acetate filter.
And obviously, the main ingredient of a cigarette is tobacco. But where does this tobacco come from? And of course, it comes from the leaves of tobacco plants found in vast tobacco fields. To obtain tobacco plants ready for harvest, turn back the clock 7 months to springtime on the vast fields of North Carolina. Before transplanting, the tobacco plants are grown in greenhouses for 7 weeks. Instead of sowing directly into the soil, the seeds are sown in floating foam trays on a nutrient solution using a floating hydroponic method, allowing the seedlings to develop uniformly and form strong root systems before planting. Then, the trays of seeds were quickly carried out to the field, where semi-automatic planting machines were waiting. Workers behind the machine continuously place seedlings into the plant feeder, while the system automatically creates furrows, places the plants in the ground, and backfills the soil around the roots as the machine moves forward. On average, each acre is planted with approximately 6,000 tobacco plants, with a spacing of about 22 inches between plants. Throughout the growing process, farmers care for tobacco plants just like other crops, and there's a long part to it, so I'll fast forward to this section. By July, tobacco plants begin to flower. Farmers remove the flower heads to concentrate nutrients in the leaves, and also spray with bud-inhibiting chemicals to prevent the plant from growing new branches. After a month, the tobacco plants turn yellow, indicating they are ready for harvest. This year's relatively favorable weather has contributed to a bountiful 2026 harvest for North Carolina farmers. Previously, farmers had to harvest tobacco leaves by hand, which required cheap labor from Mexico to work on these farms, but the results were not as efficient as desired. It would take a team of about 10 people about a week to harvest the entire large farm. Fortunately, modern machinery has almost completely replaced manual labor in the harvesting process. Specialized harvesting machines slowly move along each row of plants. As the plant enters the center of the machine, a guide rail system holds the plant upright, while the blades and leaf-separating mechanisms on either side gently remove the ripe leaves without breaking the stem. Immediately afterward, the harvested leaves are separated from the stalk and placed onto a moving conveyor belt. As the machine continues forward, the conveyor transports the leaves to a large storage bin at the rear, allowing continuous harvesting without stopping. With just one operator, this machine can handle the workload that previously required dozens of laborers in the field. Once the container is full, the harvester quickly moves to the edge of the field, where a truck is waiting. The entire container is lifted by a hydraulic system and then slowly tilted, dumping all the harvested tobacco leaves into the truck. On average, Each batch contains about 150 kilos of fresh tobacco leaves. After harvesting, trucks loaded with fresh tobacco leaves enter the receiving area of the drying plant. The leaves are dumped onto a floor where mechanical arms equipped with hydraulic grippers continuously pick up large batches and place them onto a conveyor belt. The system then distributes the leaves into a baling machine, compressing them into rectangular modules. Each module typically weighs around 250 kilograms of fresh tobacco leaves. These modules are then lifted by forklifts into giant forced drying chambers. For 5 to 7 days, a stream of hot air ranging from 35 degrees Celsius to nearly 70 degrees Celsius is continuously blown through the leaf blocks by powerful fans. This process removes most of the moisture, causing the leaves to change from green to yellow and then light brown, while simultaneously developing the characteristic tobacco aroma. After several days inside the drying chamber, the tobacco blocks are returned to the production line for sorting and preliminary processing. First, the system separates each layer of leaves and places them on a sorting conveyor belt. Next, the tobacco leaves are fed into a vein-separating system to remove the hard central stem, leaving only the soft leaf blade. Along the conveyor, workers continuously inspect each leaf visually, quickly removing torn, discolored, or substandard leaves, and sorting them by size and quality before moving on to the next stage. The tough tobacco leaf veins are completely removed and exit on the other side of the conveyor belt. These leaf blades then pass through a high-speed cutting machine, transforming them into thousands of thin, uniform tobacco strands in just seconds. Depending on the product line, tobacco from various raw material sources is blended in specific proportions. Then a small amount of flavoring, humectants, and additives are added to create the characteristic flavor and maintain quality throughout the storage period. The tobacco strands then pass over a vibrating conveyor, which keeps them evenly separated and ensures a smooth, consistent flow before the blending process. Next, the dried tobacco leaves are fed through a high-speed shredding machine, where dozens of precision blades slice them into thousands of thin, uniform strands in a matter of seconds. The width of each strand is carefully controlled to ensure consistent burning, even packing, and a uniform smoking experience in the finished cigarette. After being shredded, the tobacco strands quickly move along a conveyor belt to the packaging area, where they are compressed by hydraulic presses into square bales, ready to continue their journey in the cigarette rolling factory. These bales of tobacco are then packed into specialized cardboard boxes and carefully sealed to prevent moisture from entering during transportation. Finally, forklifts load the boxes onto trucks, ready for transport to the cigarette manufacturing plant. After leaving the initial processing facility, the cartons containing the cigarette bales are transported to the cigarette rolling and packaging plant. Before production, each bale undergoes a preliminary inspection to ensure it is not damaged, contaminated with moisture, or of poor quality during transport. Forklifts then lift the cartons onto a receiving conveyor belt, where automated robotic arms unload each bale. The bales are fed into a specialized shredding machine, using rotating shafts and blades to gently loosen the tobacco fibers that were compressed during the baling process. This restores the tobacco to its original looseness, facilitating more uniform processing in subsequent stages. The tobacco fibers then move along a conveyor system, distributed into a layer of consistent thickness before entering the cigarette rolling area. From here, the entire production process is fully automated, producing tens of thousands of cigarettes per minute. The loosened tobacco strands are then carried through a pneumatic conveying system, where a powerful stream of air gently transports them to the next stage without damaging the delicate fibers. The tobacco fibers are then continuously fed into a high-speed cigarette rolling machine. Simultaneously, a roll of rolling paper, approximately 7,000 meters long, is pulled along the conveyor belt at extremely high speed. A metering system evenly distributes a precise amount of tobacco onto the paper surface, creating a uniformly dense layer along its entire length. Next, the rolling paper is folded and wrapped tightly around the tobacco fibers, while a thin layer of food-grade glue is applied to the edges to secure the joint. In an instant, a continuous, long tobacco rod is formed. This rod is then cut into standard-length segments by a high-speed rotating blade, ready for the filter attachment process. After being cut into standard lengths, the cigarettes are then transferred to the filter attachment stage. Cellulose acetate filters are continuously fed from a separate line, and then precisely aligned to fit each cigarette. A specialized paper strip called tipping paper is wrapped around the junction between the filter and the cigarette body, while a thin layer of food-grade glue secures the two parts together. Then, the cigarettes are dispensed into the packaging area, where thousands of cigarettes are automatically arranged into uniform rectangular blocks. The rectangular blocks of cigarettes are then transferred to an automated packaging line. Here, the system continuously separates each block into groups of 20 cigarettes, according to the standard size of each pack. These cigarette groups are placed in protective foil to preserve flavor and moisture before being automatically pushed into pre-folded packaging. The machine then completes the folds, applies glue, and wraps them with a clear film, creating complete cigarette packs in a matter of seconds. Finally, the finished cigarette packs are automatically stacked into bundles, each bundle typically containing 10 packs, before being sealed in protective film and carefully packed into cardboard boxes. From here, they are ready to be shipped to distribution centers and retail stores around the world. So, you've learned about the entire tobacco manufacturing process from start to finish. Please note that this is an educational video. Thank you for your patience in watching my video until the end. Goodbye, and see you in the next videos.